Good evening, everyone. Hope everybody is doing well here today. This video has a number of components to it, but I want to start off first and foremost with the most obvious thing that I am going to be pushing bloody hard on right now. And that is, of course, my petition to have Tommy Robinson at least put in better conditions, or ideally released, while having Nicola Marfleet arrested or sacked for the breach of the Human Rights Act of Tommy Robinson. I know some of you would love me to name and shame some of the jockeys of the phallus, as it were, who want to say Tommy's exactly where he belongs and fucking should be serving life and what have you. But I don't want to give these assholes too much attention, quite frankly. And the way I slice it is you shouldn't really spend too much time arguing with stupid people. After all, they'll drag you down to their level and beat you with experience. And by that I mean obviously they'll beat you with experience and stupidity. But I digress. I want people to sign that petition, share it everywhere. We've already gotten well over 350 signatures the first couple of days, which, considering the petition I've now closed, which was arrest Keir the traitor Starmer for basically the same thing and funding terrorists, that only got 42 signatures after at least a month or so. This one's on 350 plus after just a couple of days. I can feel a great deal of weight underneath this petition. If we get behind this, I reckon we can give them a real shock. Now, devil's advocate to what I've just said now, I know some people will say these things don't do anything. And I do accept that that petition to call for a general election had 3 million signatures and Keir the traitor Starmer didn't take any notice of it. I do understand why people feel like these things don't work. But if you don't try, well, it's basically you'll always miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. Quite frankly, we have to at least bloody try. The reason I suspect Paul Thorpe's petition did not get any traction or get any notice, not just the fact that the government is basically putting it on the back burner, but because he's applying through the government website, and we all know what this government think of us. Keir the traitor Starmer has already made it his civic duty to serve only the Muslim community, to do everything he can to protect Islam, being the sectarianist bastard that he truly is. So what makes you think that they're going to give Paul Thorpe, who is actually fighting for the release of Tommy Robinson and what have you, do you think they're going to give him airtime? Of course they're not, because it would make the establishment look bad. The other reason I suspect is because Paul Thorpe is much more prominent than I am, as he has way more subscribers than I ever will. I mean, the bigger you are, the more you'll stick out. Hey, buddy! Always get some good welcomes here. Anyway, the fact of the matter is, when you get bigger, people take notice. And I'm not talking about the fact I'm 19 stone. Whenever you have a growing social media presence on the internet, people are going to take you a lot more seriously because they understand that you have clout behind you. Well, it's that or the Cavonia, one or the other. Anyway, Keir the traitor Starmer doesn't want any of us who are really big to be noticed, because obviously they have a much greater chance of waking up the 19% that are still fast asleep. But I suspect after this petition gets a whole load of signatures, I won't be surprised if the government tries to shut that shit down. Well, it's that or change.org, one or the other. But the way I slice it, we need this petition. And as I've said, if they do try to take it down, I will do everything I can to get it reinstated. They are not going to suppress us. Now, what I find funny is there are also mainstream media outlets who are going out of their way to say that Keir the traitor Starmer is not the worst PM we've ever had. And while I accept that my opinions, and of course the mainstream media's opinions, are subjective, I think the polls would state otherwise. I mean, how can a guy, or woman for that matter, go from where they were previously to having a minus 44 approval rating? And it's probably gotten even worse by now. But of course the mainstream media won't tell you this. You know the drill, folks, because say it with me, it doesn't suit the narrative. But we must push this petition forward regardless. Come sun, shine, rain, fall, or snow or some fucking extraterrestrial event. We have to keep pushing forward. No retreat, no surrender, no mercy. Because I guarantee you this much, if it came down to we were on our knees and the establishment were in front of us, I guarantee you they wouldn't show mercy, quite frankly. After all, we've seen that very evidently with how they treat their political dissidents as well as the old age pensioners. Moving on from that for the time being though, I also want to say thank you for 4,000 subscribers. I was contemplating doing this at 5,000, but I thought, no, I've gotten to 4K for the first time, so you know what? I'm going to do it now. So I will say thank you to all of you subscribers for joining me on this journey. And you know what? To all the hate watchers that are potentially out there as well, I thank you lot as well. Because you lot coming in the comments and calling me names and all that shit, it confirms I'm living in your head rent-free. And I'm also charging your landlord for extra rent. Anyway, I'm living in your head rent-free. And there's nothing you can fucking do about it. Like, it's a huge confidence boost for me when I know that the flack's getting heavier. Yes, as well as myself. Very funny. But it's always funny to me watching the trolls come in, try to give their flack, and then I just take my few moments to take out the trash. Their arguments, in I would say 999 cases out of 1,000, usually have as much weight behind them as a feather in the wind. Well, I know how much weight I've got behind my arguments. 19 stone. Because I may be a big guy, but you know what? I am 19 stones of fucking truth. But I will extend my thanks again to all of you who genuinely care and who genuinely support the cause. But each and every day, I feel like my IQ is actually starting to tick up a little bit. Even if it is 1 IQ point every few days or what have you. But it's still going up nonetheless with some of the intel I'm getting. Shit, this wasn't recording. Another one of the white band guys. Good people, them. But the point is, there's stuff that eventually I will be able to talk about. But I'm not going to make the same mistake I made last time. But what I will say is some of it involves draining the swamp. And I'm not just talking about the left side. Because obviously, when you have an orchard, you're bound to have a few bad apples every now and again. That's all I can say in good faith. We will drain the swamp on both sides, quite frankly. But as I said, I'm not making the same mistake I made last time. What I find particularly interesting, though, is we now also start seeing more of the leftoids who, you know, those people who are constantly rallying against Trump. Yeah, they've decided that they're now going to say what he said about Mr. Zelensky starting this shit was reprehensible. Isn't it funny? When he talks about Gaza and how he's going to sort shit out there, nobody says a word. But Ukraine? And suddenly everyone's up in arms. Moral outrage, white knighting and all that bollocks. Because the way I slice it, should Vladimir Putin have invaded Ukraine? No, he shouldn't. And you will never see me being a Putin apologist. That's never going to happen. Of course, NPCs will come out every now and again and say, "You're an apologist, Matthew. You're an apologist for Putin." And obviously, I'm just going to simply say, that's a complete load of bollocks, and you've already been told this. I do not support what Putin has done. Let me be clear on that. But I think it is safe to say that there are innocents being offed on both sides. So you can't sit here and say it's all one-sided. And as I've said many times before, Putin was provoked. They wanted Zelensky to join NATO. How do you think that would look? How do you think that looks when Putin's already got nukes parked outside his front door? That if he even puts a hair out of place, he should go like me, bald. Anyway, if he steps a hair out of line, his front door's going to get kicked in, basically. And if we've seen Russell Brand as well, he's also been mentioning, basically, there's been a shadow war going on in Russia. Nearly had my first stroke there, bloody hell. But the point is, they can't sit here and say that Putin went into Ukraine unprovoked. In fact, they had to eventually admit it, that Putin was provoked by Western forces and NATO. But that's, of course, something the mainstream media will be reluctant to tell you. They don't want to admit these things, because obviously it would basically destroy their narrative. And here's my ride. But the way I slice it, Donald Trump is quite right to call out Zelensky on this. Thank you. And I've already made mention about Keir the traitor Starmer trying to force the young uns here in the UK to go and act as peacekeepers in Ukraine. We're not interested, as I've said before. We have an army of illegal immigrants, foreign invaders, that are coming over here illegally. No legal or human right to be here. But he wants to send us over. You know why? Because he considers us all far right, because we're patriots. He wants to replace us patriots with basically barbarians from their third world shitholes. But that, again, is something the media won't tell you. They won't tell you, because that would go against their narrative. That's what it boils down to. But as far as Trump's concerned, he has every right to call out Zelensky for what he is. He's taking advantage of this war, as is Keir the traitor Starmer, and a lot of the other so-called democratic wankers in the West, like Hillary Clinton, George Bush, Barack Obama, or maybe I was right first time, or people like Joe Biden. You'll notice that this war was going on before Trump got into power. Then the moment Trump's gotten into power, he's trying to organise peace between Russia and Ukraine. Why do you think he's gone to Saudi Arabia to organise these meetings to do this in the first place? And what's Keir the traitor Starmer doing? He's trying to provoke World War III. But all these lefties will constantly go out of their way to say orange man bad, even though they've basically done zero research, and these were the same wankers who were basically calling for the assassination of Trump. Well, that's the thing. People would love to ignore what the lefties have done. They've been inciting violence, inciting hatred, and inciting assassination attempts against Trump. Again, where's the media coverage for it? Oh, that's right, non-existent. They're only interested in this kind of shit when it's the supposed far right doing it. But when have we called for the assassination of people? Name a time in the 21st century. I can't count, sorry. But name a time in the 21st century when the supposed far right has actually called for the death or the offing of a left-wing political figure. Please tell me. I would love to be enlightened. Because that's the thing. Us patriots have a thing in our hearts here called a moral compass. Mine keeps on wiggling and waggling everywhere and sometimes goes around in circles at a rapid rate, but it's still there. Anyway, the point is, almost never have we called for the death of people. The closest I've gotten to anything is I have encouraged people to call out what these political figures have done, or to engage in lawfare with them, to give them a taste of their own medicine, as it were. But I have never advocated for, condoned, or wanted or justified the use of violence against these political figures. No one here on the right wing has, or the centrist if you want to get technical and nitpicky. None of us have done that, but the left have. They've been calling for his assassination. They've been calling for people to attack him. They've been glorifying the attempts on his life. 3 of them. And yet the vast majority of these people have gone off unscathed, when these people should be having their collars felt quite frankly. But I've also said before, we can't have people taking stabs at one another. And I am partially guilty of this shit as well. So I'll put my hands up and say, I'll apologise for my involvement in that. The way I slice it, we can't keep fighting each other. We need to start focusing on Tommy Robinson. He is the one person that matters right now. We need to focus on getting that man out, and ideally do it in the correct way. I don't want to see in a week, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months' time that we've resorted to primal instincts. It's not what I want, it's not what people like Paul Thorpe or Maya Toosey want, and it's not what Tommy wants. Though I have said in the past before, I think the cold bitter truth is we're probably going to end up at that path anyway. But I'm going to do everything I can to fight the establishment in every capacity. We must never let this traitorous establishment get away with its crimes against us. The breach of human rights of us, yet they're trying to consider the human rights of illegal immigrants that are coming over here and literally violating our women and children. Oh, but they're scared of their human rights. Did they care for the human rights of the people they victimised? Answers on a bloody postcard to whatthefuckisgoingon.com. What this whole thing boils down to, though, is the leftoids and Keir the traitor Starmer are trying to undo all the hard work that Trump is putting in to try and get a peaceful resolution for this Ukraine-Russia conflict. I don't see one other person who is in a position of power doing that. I could definitely understand people's frustration when they say that people who go out of their way to slander Trump and slander Tommy Robinson, I can understand why some of these people are frustrated in that they wish other people would do their research, because it seems that's one of the biggest weaknesses of a lot of these people on the left wing. They just don't do any research. You could argue they're even more impulsive than I can be at times, because they don't actually, in most cases, put out the facts. They usually put out some bullshit about hither or whether, and they do it based off of feelings rather than actually based off of facts. It's very apparent when you see a lot of these left-wing NPCs just melting down at the mere idea of Trump existing, let alone being the President of the United States, or him trying to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. They have the audacity to say that Vladimir is pulling him like a puppet on a string, which is a complete crock of crap. Because he knows full well that Trump is the only adult sitting in the meeting room right now. He's the only one who's actually taking the genius steps to actually end this shit. He's the only one who isn't actively trying to claw out Vladimir Putin's eyes, metaphorically speaking. That's the thing with rabid dogs. You could reason with them, you could hold out a bone in front of them, and they'll still try to bite your arm. That's the way to look at it. Some of these people cannot be helped. And some of these people do not want to be helped, even in their, shall we say, challenged state. And that's the thing. I'm always going to say things like this because, unlike a lot of people, and you can say it with me, I'm not going to sugarcoat a motherfucking thing. I am not going to mince my words. I'm going to say exactly how it is, and I will do my best not to bullshit you. When I think of Keir the traitor Starmer and his idea that British forces would willingly lay down their arms for a traitorous sectarianist bastard to fight against Russians in a war that is nothing to do with us, the way I look at Keir the traitor Starmer, he's filled with more shit than a compost bin. And frankly, I don't think the crops would even take him as fertilizer. In fact, if they had a choice between having Keir the traitor Starmer as fertilizer and just literally decaying and dying, I think they'd choose the latter. Because the man just has no fibre in him whatsoever. He is soulless. He's the bloody Tin Man. Though this is something you already know, because I've already mentioned this a few times. He is basically the Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz. And he's also the con man that was the Wizard of Oz. And let me bring you back to the subject of migration, or illegal immigration, more appropriately. How many people have asked for half the third world to come and live in the United Kingdom? How many people have asked us, do we want these people from their third world shitholes coming over here? I guarantee you a lot of them will not say that I've asked for it, or they've asked for it. Thank you. I think you'll find a lot of people will actually say, send the lot back, quite frankly. No one here, or at least the vast majority of people here, have never been asked, or have wanted the importation of half the third world in our country. Now let me be clear, as I've always done. This does not mean we're against all foreigners. What it means is we are against uncontrolled immigration of mainly a demographic of fighting age men from the Middle East, from their third world shitholes that basically want to wage jihad against us. And I know that's a hard truth for a lot of people to admit, but the truth is, if these guys wanted to integrate with society, do you honestly think a lot of us would be of the opinion I'm having right now? No, of course not. We'd be like, these guys seem like genuine people and nice people. We want them to contribute to society. We want them to pay in taxes. And we appreciate them being here. But they have no appreciation of what we give them. Any other person who came to this country, who saw that we're rolling out the red carpet for them, they'd probably be on their knees praising the Lord right now. But these people that come over, the vast majority of these middle-aged or fighting-age men that are coming over to the UK, because it's not women and children, like the mainstream media were constantly lying about. I think that one wanker from the BBC radio show, Stephen Nolan, springs to mind. That little slime ball who kept on saying, think of the children, who said, oh, you don't want to see children safe and sound and all that shit. No, of course we do. But a lot of these people are not children. And people wonder why we get so fucked off with the establishment constantly lying to us, constantly telling us of all these lovely bloody promises they keep telling us, and then they do a U-turn on them faster than in a Tesco's roundabout. Sorry, car park. That's what happens when I get angry. My brain gets scrambled, like eggs. And there have been reports, apparently, that 50p to the pound of everything that gets sent over to Ukraine is not being used in the war. It's being used for other bloody luxuries. So make of that what you bloody will. Because I know I will. This is why a lot of us have a problem with funding dictators, or again, maybe I was right first time, like Zelensky, who are going out of their way to invade a country, to fight back against the country, demand that we fund it, and basically wants more and more from us. You know the old saying, once you pay the Dane geld, you can't get rid of the Dane? Spring to mind? This is the man that Keir the traitor Starmer wants us to go and help. Didn't even realise that I left a packet of these on the damn draining board. Well, now I'm definitely going to have a soggy biscuit, aren't I? Anyway, the point is, none of us, at least none of us patriots, want to go off and fight a war for Keir the traitor Starmer. I think a lot of us would rather turn the weapons on ourselves than fight Keir the traitor Starmer's war, quite frankly. I know I would. But you know what sickens me? Do you know what brings my piss to a boil? There are some people out there who literally think that it's perfectly okay to send our young off to die in battle against an enemy that has nothing to do with us. There was one clown in particular who I was responding to throughout the day, who was basically trying to say, oh, would you allow your children to go off and fight in a war that you didn't believe in? No, I fucking wouldn't. Because there are far better things to do for someone who is much younger of age than to go off, fight for a person who will never support them, and to go and get killed, basically. They tried to even make it as if that and having a different opinion are the same fucking thing. Like, what drugs are you doing, my guy? What drugs are you doing to think that this is on the same level as having a different opinion? And let me be clear on this, to put this to bed. If someone has a different opinion to me, that's called freedom of speech. I'm not going to hate them any more or less because they have a different bloody opinion. That's one thing. What I would have a problem with, though, is somebody young and dumb, being impulsive and reckless, wanting to go off and fight in a war that A, is nothing to do with us, and B, is not a just cause. None of us want to fight in a war that is not justifiable. Now, if the Russians were to come over to our shores, like if they start fucking invading over in Chroma or whatever, and they start threatening our people, then yeah, maybe I could say, yeah, you know what? If you want to defend our lands, by all fucking means. But as far as going off to fight in a war against an enemy that basically has nothing to do with us, that was provoked, at best by NATO and the EU, and at worst by Zelensky himself, to go and die. Not happening. And I tell you now, if someone tried to do that shit, I would walk through hell and back to make sure they don't throw their lives away for some traitorous dictator like Keir the traitor, Starmer. Those are my thoughts on the matter. The bottom line is this war should have nothing to do with us. We should not be getting involved in other people's wars unless they directly threaten us. And by that, I mean they're threatening to invade, they're threatening to wipe us all out, they're threatening to delete our entire existence by using the delete key on the keyboard, or some other thing. Do they threaten us? Yes or no? If yes, fine, go ahead. If no, you're not fucking going. We will not sacrifice ourselves for what is effectively the worst Prime Minister we've ever had in our history, who would rather protect terrorists and protect nonces and dial M for you-know-what, who would rather prioritise them over us. No chance. The day I do that is the day I pull a revolver out, put it in my mouth, and blow half my head off. Because it's never going to happen. I'll tell you who you should send, though, just to remind people. What about those people who are very handy with a blade? Because we've clearly seen a lot of these third world shithole barbarians. Oh, they're very good at hacking and slashing their way through things, driving cars into people, and blowing up concerts and what have you. Why don't we send some of them over? I'm sure the Ukrainians would have no trouble training them up, telling them how to use a gun, and go and fight the enemy themselves. Oh, but that's right. They're not far right, are they? Or, sorry, far right. Because let's face it, that's the real reason Keir the traitor Starmer wants people to go over there. He wants to kill two birds with one stone. Well, I'll tell you right now, this is one bird that certainly ain't flying over to Ukraine to fight your dirty fucking wars.